I'd like to bring the Metro North meeting for the month of November to order, please. I need a motion to accept the minutes of the October 21st meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. The work plan, I don't think there's any changes to the work plan. Status of operation.
Okay, for sure, Sherry. Just I make two comments. I just wanted to inform the committee of first that we opened our new ticket center in Grand Central about 2 weeks ago. It's over on the east side of Grand Central, east of the ticket windows, on the way towards the Lexington Avenue subway. It was a project that involved our GCT forces working with customer service, with operations planning, a few other groups. We put in a number of machines in that area. We've greatly expanded the capacity of ticket selling in Grand Central. People love it. We opened it at about 3:30 on a Friday, and about 3:31 someone came in and started using it. So it's been a big success and will help us on customer service, improving customer service in Grand Central, as well as get some efficiencies in terms of how we sell tickets, which we're in the midst of. We've taken some of the efficiency, and we'll be looking further. The second project I want to note is on Friday we had a groundbreaking in Cortland. Supervisor Puglisi was there, along with Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff, and also from the County Board, Mr. George Oros. And that was a culmination. We did the groundbreaking for a new parking facility that will double the number of parking spaces. Will provide better access from the west side of the railroad to Cortland. It's in a station improvement project as well. We'll have a concession area, better customer waiting area. And that's a project that we've been working on for the better part of 4 years. You've approved over the years a number of real estate items. We had, I don't recall, I think it was $35 million project. Yes. It's about, we had, but I'll speak that in a second, Don. There was about, I think we had 4 or 5 real estate actions to make that happen. It involved the state, the federal government, the town, and part of the money. I think the cost was around $35 million. We received $17 million of CMAQ money outside our capital program for the federal government for the project. We received over $5 million from the state for access improvements. So from our capital program standpoint, the impact was like 15 or 17 million. Does that sound right, Randy? Yeah. So the rest was new money to Metro North. But more importantly, it sets up Cortland to be a major station in that part of the county where there's no room to expand at either Croton or Peekskill. We don't control those areas, and so it's now open to parking for people in communities such as Yorktown. They want to come over from Orange or Rockland counties over to Bear Mountain Bridge. You now have a place for people to go where there's space and it's open to everybody. So that project is scheduled to be completed in about 2 years, and we kicked it off on Friday. Okay.
Status of operations.
Okay. In October, we operated at 98.1%, which was above goal of 97.6. Our AM peak ran at 98.1, which was above goal at 96.8. Our PM peak ran at 98.4, which was above goal of 97.7. Our off-peak weekday ran at 98.5, which was above goal of 97.8. And our off-peak weekend ran at 96.9, which was our only measure below goal at 97.9. Our AM reverse peak was at 98.6, above goal of 97.4. Of the 31 days in October, we operated below 95% on 3 occasions. 342 trains operated late out of the 18,230 scheduled. 99.9% of the trips were completed, and 98.6% of our trains operated with full consists. On the west of Hudson, this is in your book on page 12E, we operated below goal of 94.8 with a goal of 96.2. We operated 88 trains late out of 1,707. The Port Jervis line operated at 91.8, which is below goal of 95, and the Pascack Valley operated at 96.9, which is below goal of 97. The MDF numbers for September, we had a goal of 105,000 miles. We exceeded that goal by 170,649. Year-to-date, we're at 110,872. And I just want to mention also our new service to Yankee Stadium and Meadowlands this year. We had a great success particularly with Yankee Stadium. We had an on-time performance system-wide of 96.8 to Yankee Stadium. And the unique thing about Yankee Stadium is, unlike our regular operation where everything is scheduled departure time, scheduled station stop, scheduled arrival time, Yankee Stadium is very fluid because you don't know when the end of the game is going to come. You don't know if it's going to be an extra innings. You don't know if it's going to be a rain out. So you really have to be prepared by stacking trains, and you have to. Unfortunately, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I had to actually watch the game. but that's okay. So it's a very fluid operation. It was a lot of fun for us, and we're looking forward to next year's challenges.
Wow.
Yeah.
They got their crying towels now, so.
Yeah, but the chairman's a different view.
Sherry, could you give a little bit of a comment on the west of Hudson? It seems a little out of pattern.
Which page, Jim, are you looking at?
How low it is.
Yeah, there were
12E.
There were 3 significant occurrences west of Hudson. We had a circuit down in Otisville on a single track. At Harriman, we had some late bus connections. And then the presidential motorcade on October 21st hindered the operation.
But that was enough to knock it out.
Yes, sir.
That's how little service we have.
Oh, I know. Here we go. Just,
I apologize.
I represent all riders.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried.
Recently on New Haven, there's a lot of wires down.
I don't think we've had an unusually large number of those. We had an event last week, for example. It was a fiber optic cable, came down on the New Canaan branch, but it affected only 1 or 2 trains. We have not had I don't think we had a wire
We
incident
haven't
in
had
October.
a wire failure. We had the Koopa breaker that was bent this weekend, which resulted in a DPO. We've had several DPOs for various reasons.
That's
but,
a drop pantograph.
I'm sorry. Yeah, drop pantograph order.
You have to drop the pantograph because the wire's sagging, otherwise it would engage.
But no wire breakage events.
No, but I just was thinking that I've heard delays more frequently than
Really? I think New Haven,
Yeah,
New
we're
Haven
doing well.
last month was a good month.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple little wire incidences recently, nothing of any major consequence.
I want to thank again how smoothly the busing has gone around the track construction on the Port Jervis line.
Right.
I understand that'll be done next week,
Right.
unless there's a change, which is great. It means a lot to be able to get all of the trains into the real station. It's a safer
Right.
boarding for all the people. I had one day, though, where the buses beat the train, and I didn't like that very much.
That's not a permanent occurrence, though.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Kim?
Good morning. September 2009 financial report compared to the mid-year forecast begins on page 21. Year-to-date September net deficit for non-reimbursable activity before cash adjustments is favorable to the mid-year forecast by $20.7 million or 4%. Results for the month of September are essentially in line with the mid-year forecast. September combined farebox revenue and other operating revenues is also in line with the mid-year forecast for this first time for this year. This is largely due to the fact that September ridership declines, which were steadily increasing each month this year, leveled off in August and now reflects a lower unfavorable level when compared to the mid-year forecast and last year. For example, September ridership is 3.6% negative or unfavorable to mid-year forecast and 4.7% unfavorable to September of 2008. This is 1 to 2% less than what we were running in the previous months. Other operating revenues continue to generate positive variances in the area of higher than projected GCT retail revenues and advertising revenues. In the area of expenses, both labor and non-labor expenditures continue to be lower than projected. We continue to see real savings in the area of net payroll, straight time, and overtime spending, health and welfare premium rates, and traction and propulsion power. New to this month is we also have a significant favorable variance of less than $2 million in the area of maintenance and other operating contracts, mainly due to a non-recurring annual administrative billing adjustment related to Amtrak reimbursements. This has to do with 2008 track and propulsion reimbursements, which was high in those periods. So in conclusion, year-to-date September cash net deficit for non-reimbursable activity after cash adjustments is also favorable to the mid-year forecast by $32.1 million or 11%. All other details are in your book, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Kim? Bob?
Good morning. The monthly ridership report is in your book starting on page 34. I'm just going to give you a few highlights. September ridership east of Hudson was down 4.7%, below 2008 levels. Right now, year-to-date, ridership through September is down 4.0%. To put that in context, the 2009 ridership is now at a level that's slightly higher than 2007, as I've said a couple times now. All the losses this year have offset the gains we had last year, so we're back to slightly above 2007 levels. By line, we saw significant drops in ridership again on all three lines. The Harlem line was down 5.7. The Hudson line slightly better in quotes at minus 3.4, and the New Haven in between at minus 4.6. Commutation continues to be the worst part of the story. Commutation ridership in September east of Hudson was down almost 9%, 8.6%. The one good piece of news in September was that actually non-commutation ridership was up compared to September 2008. That's the first positive number we've seen since April. So we were up 1.3% for non-commutation ridership east of Hudson. We'll be watching that closely to see if we see that repeated going forward. That's the first time we've seen a positive month. West of Hudson, ridership in September was down over 7%. I'm trying to find my page. And year-to-date, ridership on the both lines. Thank you, Susan. September ridership west of Hudson was down 7.7. Year-to-date, we're off 7.2. Significantly worse on the Port Jervis line. Year-to-date ridership on the Port Jervis line is down 9.3. On the Pascack Valley, where we had seen one or two positive months earlier in the year, we're down just 1.5. That's being buoyed up again by the significant service expansion we had with off-peak and weekend service, we think. That's somewhat offsetting the downward trend related to the economy. Connecting services continue to mirror what we're seeing in terms of the base ridership to from New York. The Hudson Rail Link is down 10%, Havis-Rossing down to about 10%, and Newburgh Beacon is off 17% in the month of September. I want to talk briefly about wrap up what you've already heard about our service to Yankees East 153rd Street for the games. I just want to talk a little bit about the ridership we saw. We were quite pleased with the ridership, including the growth we saw as the season went on. When we first started in May 23rd, we were seeing 1,500 to 2,000 people for a weekday game, and we were seeing 3,000 to 4,000 people for weekend games. And as the season went on, as we approached the end of the season, we were seeing close to 4,000 for some weeknight games, between 3,000 and 4,000, closer to 4,000 for some of those games. And the weekend games started to approach 5,000 a game. When we got into the postseason, those numbers went even further. And for the 3 World Series games, finally, Game 6, the final game, was over 6,000. That was our first time we hit 6,000 people going to the game. And the 3 World Series games averaged almost 5,300 a game. So we're quite pleased with the results for game days. We expect next year, I'm going to be optimistic, that we might see some significant growth. And I'll say two things that I think will lead to some growth for us. First is all the people who had bought tickets for the 2009 baseball season had bought, for the most part, had bought them early in the year before we opened up. So really the people who were buying tickets had not experienced taking Metro North to the game. we had a lot of anecdotal comments from people that now that they've experienced this, I'm going to come to more games next year. We'll see if that translates into actual ticket sales, that people from our territory, because of how pleasant the experience was, there's more people from our territory buying tickets next year when the tickets go on sale in February of 10. Second thing is, again, for the moment it's hearsay until the rates are officially published, but everything indicates that this Bronx Parking Development Corporation, which takes over control of all the parking next year, is going to significantly raise the parking rates at Yankee Stadium. If that's true, we figure that's got to translate into more business for us. So both of those should work to increase usage of the train next year. Football, we're at the halfway point for the football season. We've had 5 games for football. I'll say, unfortunately, from our ridership perspective, 4 of the 5 games so far have been Jet games. And the luck of the draw, this year we're going to have 7 Jet games and only 3 Giant games. The reason I'm mentioning that is that we knew going in that there are a lot more Giant fans that live in our territory, particularly along the New Haven line up into Connecticut, than Jet fans. Historically, the Giants playing at the Yankee Stadium and played at the Yale Bowl for a few years while the stadium was being constructed. There's a historical fan base much bigger in our territory. That said, for the Jet games, we've been getting in the range of 250 to, we had almost 400 people a couple weeks ago for a game. The one Giant game we had, the first Giant game, we had about 450 people take the train. We've got another Giant game coming up, I believe, this Sunday. This will be our second of 3, and we'll be watching that. The other factor is we've had pretty nice weather for all the games. We're going to be curious to see what happens if we get into a December weekend where it's snowing or it's cold and rainy, and we'll see if people are more likely to take the train if the highway driving is not as pleasant as it perhaps has been this season to date. So we'll keep you informed of how that goes through the rest of the season.
Has the New Jersey Transit done that tailgating thing yet?
No. For
That'll
next year,
change.
thank you, Susan. For next year, there's going to be some major changes. One is the new stadium is literally at our doorstep of the train station. Right now, you have to walk all the way around the new stadium construction site, to get to the old stadium. Second is that in between the train station and the gateway to the new stadium is going to be, I believe it's Budweiser sponsors, this railgating experience, which is going to be food, live entertainment. They're talking about name entertainment, as well as food and picnic tables, and trying to replicate the experience, the tailgating experience of people who take transit. That's all going to kick off, no pun intended, next August when the new stadium opens. So we'll see how that goes, and also we'll see how the schedule works. Hopefully, we'll have more Giant games next season at 1 o'clock.
Let me add, kind of combining the two. So this year was the first year on both of these services. I think they were excellent from both the conception through the delivery of the service. The reaction we've had has been really positive, which sets the stage for, improvements next year. One thing Bob did not mention, which has always struck me, is that in the last game in the World Series, we had 12% of the people who were at Yankee Stadium took Metro North to get there. Now, if the Yankees also have a higher attendance next year, that would also move the numbers up. What we're doing now, which will take the time with the completion of these 2 services, we'll do an assessment, we'll make the refinements necessary for next year, and then we'll go forward accordingly. So that's our plan once the year is completed on football. We're doing the Yankee Stadium assessment as we speak.
I'd like to say that, based upon what you say, that we'll do much better if the Giants and the Yankees win.
Yes, we will. There's definitely a conflicted emotion here.
Any questions? Okay. Ron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. The capital program highlights are on page 43A, and I have a few updates. As Howard mentioned, at Cortland Parking, we had a groundbreaking on Friday. Right now we're doing a lot of earth moving and pile driving, and we'll begin the demolition of the Local 14 building shortly, probably this week. At Tarrytown, the temporary Track 3 platform is in service, and the demo of the old Track 3 platform is underway. Station buildings, the station building rehabilitation, we've achieved substantial completion at both Tarrytown and Mamaroneck. At Poughkeepsie, we have substantial completion for the sewer project. and we finished the work at Middletown Parking. That was the redoing of the entrance roadway. GCT elevators, both the freight elevator and the passenger elevators, work is ongoing on both of those jobs. The Croton Harmon Shops and Yards project, the coach shop, is we're continuing with the training and the moving into that facility, which actually won't be completed until December. We've got a little bit of site work to do with regard to force account third rail work at the north end of the site, so that we can have connections to both ends of that shop. With regard to rolling stock, the coach overhaul program, we have 66 cars returned in service. That's 55 trailers and 11 cab cars. And the West of Hudson locomotive, this phase of that project, the first 2 locomotives are at Progress Rail in Mayfield, Kentucky, and that's the first 2 of the 6 locomotives for the West of Hudson in this phase. And on page 43C, I have an analysis of the awards made under the General Engineering Consultant Program for the past year. Every November, we do a reconciliation of those projects, design efforts on those projects. There were 8 tasks that didn't require board approval, and they averaged a little under $500,000 a job. And there were 2 tasks that required board approval, and they averaged just a little under $3 million. Over the past, since November 2000, actually, we've awarded 83 general engineering contracts for an average of a little under $300,000 that did not require board approval, and we awarded 45 contracts that did require board approval, and they averaged just a little less than $2 million a contract. And going forward, what we're going to do is for awards over $1.5 million from the general engineering contract, Metro-North Procurement will notify the Metro-North Committee of any prospective awards for that month over $1.5 million as information. And all GEC awards, regardless of their dollar value, will be presented as information items in the capital program, this section that I do, monthly to the committee. And annually, we will still continue to do a reconciliation once a year in November.
Are any of these contracts done in coordination with Long Island Railroad?
Yes, if it's a rolling stock type contract, it would be. Yeah. Yeah, but for the majority of them, very site-specific.
Yeah. Don, just to, let me add to that. The GEC program itself was done jointly with the Long Island.
Right.
The previous one, and then will be coming next month, Anthony? In December, the 2 railroads will come again with a whole new GEC program, so it's done together. In general, we have a very extensive effort underway to do things with Long Island wherever we can in the world of procurement. And some of them are capital, a lot of them are operating funded, so not what Ron is working on, but there is a very active process where the 2 railroads are working daily on joint procurements.
Very good. I think very important.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you.
Any other questions?
Questions? Okay. Safety report.
Good morning. The safety statistics are in your books beginning on page 46, and I'll summarize them briefly. These are results through September, and during that period, there were 35 additional employee injuries this year compared to the same period last year, a 25% increase. Our lost time and restricted duty frequency index was up from 1.2 injuries per 200,000 hours worked to 2.2. And our FRA reportable frequency index was up from 2 injuries per 200,000 hours worked to 2.8 during that period. The customers on page 48, the customer injuries were down from 209 in 2008 to 158 this year, a decrease of 57 or 24%. The injuries per million rides, which are those numbers adjusted for ridership, were down 21% from 3.4 to 2.7 customer injuries per million rides. And the FRA reportable customer injuries were down from 0.4 per million rides to 0.3, a 25% decrease. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thanks. Police report.
Good morning, everybody. Pages 49A, 49B consist of the crime numbers for the MTA Police system-wide as well as the Metro North side of the house. We're pleased to say that the numbers this year are down as compared to last year, and we continue to strive for that. With the holidays approaching, we continue to use our See Something, Say Something program as well as continue our random bag inspections. And just to dovetail on what Bobby said before about Yankee Stadium, as far as the police are concerned, it was a success. We had very few incidents that we had to be involved with. We worked in conjunction with the people of operations, and hopefully you're satisfied with our presence there. And that's all I have.
Great. Any questions?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, information items. Operating budget, we'll be doing that on Wednesday, I think.
Right.
Holiday schedule.
Bob?
On page 50 in your book, there's a short memo that summarizes the plans for the holiday services from Thanksgiving through New Year's. It's very similar to what we did last year. Actually ridership we're expecting to be with the bump up for the holidays to be about where we were last year. We're planning for that, given the 4% decrease we've seen year to date. Thanksgiving weekend, it's a classic service. On the day before Thanksgiving, it's the heaviest day of the year. We'll have extra service out noon to 4 p.m. by consolidating some trains towards the tail end of the peak, since the rule is they can only go home once. The Thanksgiving Day, we have a lot of extra service for what we refer to as both the parade crowd and the go-to-see grandma crowd, both in and out of the city in the morning. There's a lot of travels Thanksgiving morning. Day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, as the retailers call it, a greatly reduced peak, both peaks actually, and then a lot of extra service late morning for the shoppers that come in. The weekends between Thanksgiving and New Year's, we will have extra service on Saturday and Sunday to handle all the people who come into the city for various holiday-related activities, shopping, and other things. The Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, every year it's different based on the calendar. This year they create long weekends because Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve are both on Thursdays, and Christmas, New Year's Days are both on Fridays. So we've got 2 long weekends, as well as that week in between. When it falls like this, there tends to be a lot of travel with the kids out of school and such, the week in between. So we'll be doing a lot of extra service over those 2 weekends, and special service late morning off-peak the week in between to accommodate the ridership we expect to be seeing in and out of the city. Special timetables will be produced for Thanksgiving weekend, and then a special timetable for Christmas, New Year's weekend, which will also include the overnight service that we run all night that we've done for many years now successfully on New Year's Eve. Any questions?
Questions? Thanks. Lease agreement.
Okay, this was brought before real estate. We'll bring you for information here. This is the culmination of our project to build a new employee locker facilities in what was the old tennis court. As part of that, real estate with us worked on a new lease for a reduced footprint for a tennis court at about 3 times the rent of the old one. So we think that's a real positive. And basically this is here. This complements, for your information, this complements the employee facility. It does not take away from it.
Any questions? Okay, this month we have our charter review action item. A copy of the charter is in your committee materials. I'd like to point out the revision in paragraph 4 of the charter. When the committee charters were first drafted, the purpose of the charter was to spell out the role and responsibilities of the committee. This revision rounds out the charter and provides a complete picture of the working relationship between the committee and the staff. It outlines the responsibilities of the staff to provide the committee with all of the relevant information regarding matters before the committee. It also requires the staff to provide all the information the committee needs to perform its monitoring and oversight function. I need a motion to approve the charter as revised. Can I get a second? Second. And all in favor? Any against? Carried. Okay, our procurements.
Okay, procurements. We have a small agenda this month, and in part, let me explain why before I get to the specifics of the procurements. One of the areas that we focused on, and I know you've heard me talk about over the past year, is for us to be getting the best value from all our procurements. And it's an area where we will continue to focus to try to get efficiencies and savings in what basically, as Don, you mentioned, a very difficult time. It's the place we must be focused on. In addition, with the new chairman coming in, he has brought a focus as well to procurements and how we do procurements. So we are really on a multi-level path at this point in time, in that certain procurements, questions have been asked, so we have not come forward. We're addressing the questions to make sure that the information and, more importantly, the process was correctly followed and we're getting the best value. More importantly than that, in my opinion, is we will have an initiative which is we're calling a strategic procurement initiative at Metro North, and that is to ensure that it's really looking at how we are making our business decisions from the moment we decide we're going to do something through when we get it. And that involves a coordination between our procurement staff and the ordering department. Frequently that will be the operating department as to what's the best way to accomplish a goal. Then it's looking at the joint procurement opportunities with other properties. Are we buying things the right way? And basically it's looking at the whole process in a much more interactive and aggressive fashion than we have historically. So my goal is that we won't be pulling procurements, and once the cycle catches up with itself, that we will have done the work in advance as opposed to having to answer questions at the wrong time. Better than proceeding, but it's stuff that should have been better addressed earlier on. So that's, we may be light on procurements for a few months because a lot of what we've gone through, a lot of what you would have normally seen will not have gone through that process. So you'll hear a lot more about this on what we're doing on the procurements, but that's kind of the overview. This month we have no joint procurements from our standpoint. New York City Transit had one for a multi-agency indefinite quantities contract, which provided temporary scheduling personnel on an as-needed basis. They selected 4 vendors. We're estimating that our share of that contract will be not to exceed $700,000 over 5 years. We do have the one procurement this month. It's a non-competitive procurement to Harris Stratix Networks, who is the original software developer to provide support services for our network management system. And this is a proprietary software to Harris Stratix, so that's why it's non-competitive. We are asking, let's see, the amount of that procurement is $255,000, yeah, not to exceed $255,000, and that is the only procurement we have.
Questions? Motion to move the procurement. Second. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. No need for an executive session. Our next meeting is Wednesday, December the 9th at 8:30 a.m. Motion to adjourn?